A broke, divorced woman serving champagne to the wealthy people she used to belong to. But tonight, in a private VIP lounge, a powerful man's gaze cuts through her, not as a server, but as prey. Luca Moretti doesn't ask. He takes. And Emma Carter, who's lost everything, is about to discover that being seen by a man this dangerous could be the worst thing that ever happened to her, or her only salvation. Follow my story to the end, hit like, and comment what city you're watching from so I can see how far this story has traveled. Now, let's start from the beginning. The champagne flute felt cold against Emma Carter's fingertips as she stood perfectly still in the corner of the ballroom, watching crystal chandeliers cast fractured light across marble floors. She'd been holding the tray for 17 minutes. Her feet ached in the cheap heels she'd bought at a discount store 3 weeks ago, the ones with the slightly uneven heel that made her walk with a barely perceptible limp. No one noticed. No one ever noticed the servers. That was the point, wasn't it? To be invisible, to fade into the expensive wallpaper and ornate molding, to become part of the scenery while wealthy people in designer gowns and tailored suits congratulated themselves on their importance. Emma had been one of them once, not anymore. She moved through the crowd with practiced efficiency, offering champagne to women dripping in diamonds and men whose watches cost more than her annual salary. The Plaza Hotel ballroom was packed tonight. Some charity gala for children's literacy, though Emma suspected most attendees couldn't name a single book they'd read this year. She certainly couldn't judge. She hadn't picked up anything beyond bills and collection notices in months. Champagne? She offered to a couple near the dessert table, her voice professionally neutral. The woman took a glass without looking at her. The man didn't even acknowledge her existence. Perfect. Emma returned to her station near the service hallway, setting down the empty tray. Her manager, Rita, a brittle woman in her 50s with too much makeup and a permanent scowl, appeared beside her. VIP lounge needs service, Rita said, not looking up from her clipboard. Third floor, west wing, private event. Take the good stuff. She gestured toward a separate cart loaded with bottles Emma recognized. Vintage champagne that cost more per bottle than she made in a week. How many guests? Don't know. Don't care. Just keep them happy and keep your mouth shut. These are serious people, Emma. Don't embarrass me. Emma nodded, pushing the cart toward the service elevator. Her reflection caught in the mirrored walls, thin, tired, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't quite hide. Her dark hair was pulled back in a tight bun, her server's uniform crisp but generic. She looked exactly like what she was, a 32-year-old woman barely holding on. The elevator climbed slowly. Emma closed her eyes, willing away the headache building behind her temples. She'd worked a double shift yesterday, taken a bartending gig after this one ended at 11. Sleep was something that happened in 4-hour increments, squeezed between jobs and anxiety. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago. Marcus had gotten the house, the cars, most of the savings. His lawyer had been better. His new girlfriend, now wife, had been prettier, younger, more compliant. Emma had gotten the debt, the blame, and the profound understanding that she'd wasted 7 years on a man who'd replaced her the moment someone shinier came along. The elevator dinged. 3rd floor. Emma pushed the cart down a hallway that grew quieter, more exclusive. The carpet here was thicker, the lighting softer. At the end of the corridor, 2 men in dark suits stood on either side of an unmarked door. Security, clearly. The kind that didn't wear name tags or smile. Service, Emma said quietly, stopping a respectful distance away. One of them, buzz-cut, scar above his left eyebrow, spoke into his sleeve, waited, nodded. ID, he said. Emma fumbled for her Plaza temporary badge, hands shaking slightly. He examined it with more scrutiny than seemed necessary, then stepped aside. The door opened into a different world. The VIP lounge was smaller than the main ballroom, but infinitely more luxurious. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city, the night skyline glittering like scattered diamonds, dark wood paneling, leather furniture that probably cost more than a car, artwork that looked suspiciously like originals. The lighting was low, intimate, and unlike the crowded chaos downstairs, there were only 5 people here. 4 men stood near the windows, talking in low voices. They had that particular quality wealthy men cultivated, absolute certainty in their right to occupy space. Emma recognized the type. Marcus had tried to be one of them, failed, blamed her for his inadequacy. But it was the 5th person who made her breath catch. He sat alone in a leather chair near the fireplace, perfectly still, watching her with an intensity that felt physical. Dark suit, dark hair, features that would have been handsome if they weren't so carefully controlled. Mid-30s, maybe? It was hard to tell. He had the kind of face that could be 25 or 45, depending on the light. What was unmistakable was the power. It radiated off him like heat. Emma forced herself to move, to do her job, to become invisible again. She positioned the cart near the bar area, began arranging glasses with hands that wanted to shake. "Gentlemen," she said softly, "can I offer you something to drink?" The men by the window barely glanced at her. One nodded toward the champagne. Emma poured, delivered the glasses, retreated. The whole interaction took 90 seconds. She was good at this, at being efficient and forgettable. But the man by the fireplace hadn't looked away. Emma could feel his attention like a weight on her skin. She busied herself with the bar setup, arranging bottles she'd already arranged, straightening glasses that were already straight. The other men's conversation was a low murmur, something about shipping routes and port authorities, words that meant nothing to her. "You?" The voice was quiet, but absolute. Emma turned. The man by the fireplace gestured slightly. "Come here." It wasn't a request. Emma walked toward him, heart pounding for reasons she couldn't name. Up close, he was even more striking. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that missed nothing, a mouth that looked like it rarely smiled. There was something coiled about him, something dangerous, barely contained. "What's your name?" he asked. "Emma, sir." "Last name?" She hesitated. "Carter." He studied her face like he was memorizing it. "You're very good at disappearing, Emma Carter." "Excuse me?" "Standing in corners, making yourself invisible. It's a skill." His voice was low, controlled, with an accent she couldn't quite place. Italian, maybe, softened by years elsewhere. "Why do you do it?" Emma's mouth went dry. "I'm working, sir. That's what we're supposed to do." "Be invisible? Be professional?" Something flickered in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. "And being professional means erasing yourself?" "It means doing my job without being intrusive." "Interesting definition." He leaned back slightly. "You weren't always invisible, though, were you?" The question hit like a slap. Emma's hands clenched at her sides. "I don't know what you mean." "Yes, you do." He tilted his head. "You know exactly what I mean. You've been someone, belonged somewhere. Then you didn't. Now you're here, pretending you never existed at all." Emma's chest tightened. "I should get back to... sit." "Sir, I can't..." "Sit down, Emma." Not louder, but somehow more absolute. "Please." The please surprised her into obeying. She perched on the edge of the chair across from him, spine rigid, ready to bolt. The man, she still didn't know his name, watched her with those dark, relentless eyes. "How long have you been working here?" 3 months? And before that? Does it matter? "I'm asking." Emma swallowed. "I worked in marketing for a consulting firm." "Worked?" Past tense. "I was let go." "When?" 8 months ago. "Around the time of your divorce." Emma's blood went cold. "How do you—" "Marcus Carter, investment banker at Lehman Solutions. Married his assistant 4 months after your separation was finalized. You signed a disadvantageous settlement agreement because your lawyer convinced you fighting would be more expensive than surrendering." He recited the facts like he was reading from a file. "You're currently $43,000 in debt, working 3 jobs, living in a studio apartment in Queens that costs more than you can afford. Should I continue?" Emma stood up so fast the chair scraped against the floor. "Who the hell are you? Sit down." "No, I don't know what kind of game this is, but—" "Luca Moretti." He said it quietly, like the name itself was explanation enough. "And it's not a game, Emma. I want to know who you are." "You just proved you already know everything about me." "Facts aren't knowledge. Sit down." Emma remained standing, hands trembling with fury and something else. Fear, maybe. This man had looked into her life, pulled apart her privacy like it was nothing. The casual violation of it made her stomach turn. But she also recognized the name. Luca Moretti. She'd heard it before, in the kinds of conversations people had in lowered voices. Business, shipping, connections that went places legitimate companies didn't. I need to get back to work, she said, voice tight. No, you don't. My manager has been informed you're attending to the VIP lounge, exclusively, for the rest of the evening. Luca stood, and Emma instinctively stepped back. He was tall, lean, but solid, with the kind of physical presence that came from absolute confidence. You can leave if you want. Walk out that door, go back to disappearing, but you won't. You don't know that, don't I? He moved closer, close enough that Emma could smell his cologne, something expensive and understated. You're furious right now, violated, scared, but you're also curious, because someone finally looked at you, really looked, and part of you has been desperate for that. Emma's breath came short. You don't know anything about me. I know you're drowning. I know you wake up at 3 in the morning calculating which bill to pay first. I know you haven't bought yourself anything that wasn't absolutely necessary in 6 months. I know you're tired, Emma. So tired you can barely remember what it felt like not to be tired. Tears burned behind her eyes. She refused to let them fall. Luca's voice softened, just slightly. I know you're stronger than the man who left you ever deserved, and I know you're wasted serving champagne to people who don't see you. Then why are you looking? Emma whispered. Because I see what they don't. The moment stretched, fragile and dangerous. Emma should leave. Every instinct screamed at her to walk away from this man who knew too much, who looked at her like she was something valuable and breakable at the same time. But she didn't move. Luca returned to his chair, gestured for her to sit. This time, Emma did. Tell me something true, he said. Something you haven't told anyone. Why would I do that? Because I asked, and because you want to. Emma laughed, bitter and sharp. You're insane. Probably. He smiled for the first time, and it transformed his face completely, made him younger, more human. But I'm also the only person in this building who knows your name, your real name, not server or miss or you. It's Emma Carter. Say something true, Emma. She stared at him, this stranger who'd dissected her life and was now asking for her secrets. It was manipulation, obviously, control. The kind of power play men like him probably pulled constantly. But she was so tired, and he was right. Part of her, some desperate broken part, wanted to be seen. I'm afraid I'll disappear completely, Emma said quietly. That one day I'll look in the mirror and there'll be nothing left. Just an outline where a person used to be. Luca didn't respond immediately. He just watched her, those dark eyes unreadable. Finally, he nodded. You won't. How do you know? Because I won't let you. The presumption should have angered her. Instead, it sent a shiver down her spine. I don't need rescuing, Emma said. No, you don't. You need to be seen. There's a difference. Luca leaned forward. Have dinner with me. What? Tomorrow. Dinner. Emma shook her head. I work tomorrow. What time? 6 to midnight. Bartending shift. Where? She shouldn't tell him. Definitely shouldn't. Riley's. It's a pub in... I know where it is. I'll have someone cover your shift, pick you up at 7. You can't just... I can. I am. Unless you'd rather I didn't. Emma opened her mouth to refuse, to tell this controlling, invasive stranger that he couldn't simply rearrange her life because he wanted to. But the words stuck in her throat, because part of her, that same desperate, invisible part, wanted this. Wanted someone to make decisions, to see her, to pull her out of the gray, exhausted nothing her life had become. Why? She asked instead. Why what? Why me? You could have anyone. Why are you looking at me? Luca stood, walked to the window overlooking the city. When I was 15, I watched my father die. Someone put a bullet in his head in our kitchen while we were eating dinner. The men who did it made me watch, made me understand that power isn't about money or position. It's about control, about seeing what others miss. Emma's breath caught. He turned back to her. Most people look without seeing. They observe surfaces, make assumptions. You know what I saw when you walked in here tonight? What? A woman who's survived being erased, who gets up every day and fights even though she's exhausted, who's been broken and is still standing. He moved closer. That's not common, Emma. That's not something I ignore. I'm not a project. No, you're not. His voice dropped lower. You're something far more interesting. The air between them felt charged, dangerous. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs. 7 o'clock, Luca said. I'll send a car. I haven't said yes. You will. The absolute certainty in his voice should have infuriated her. Instead, it made something low in her stomach twist with heat. And if I don't? Emma challenged. Luca smiled again, that transformative expression that made him look almost gentle. Then I'll try again. And again. Until you either say yes or convince me you genuinely want me to stop. That's harassment. It's persistence. There's a difference. He pulled a card from his jacket pocket, held it out. My private number. Use it if you change your mind. Or if you need anything. Anything at all, Emma. She took the card, heavy stock, expensive, with just a phone number embossed in black. No name, nothing else. I should go, Emma said. Should, but you don't want to. You're very sure of yourself. I'm sure of what I see, and I see you, Emma Carter, all of you, not just the invisible server or the abandoned wife or the woman drowning in debt. I see the person who survived all of that and is still here, still fighting. Emma's throat tightened. You don't know me. Not yet, but I will. Luca stepped back, giving her space. 7 o'clock. Wear whatever makes you feel like yourself. Not what you think I want to see. She should refuse, should walk out of this room and never look back. This man was dangerous, not in the obvious physical way, but in the way he looked at her like he could see straight through her careful defenses. Okay, Emma heard herself say. Luca's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes warmed. Okay. Emma turned toward the door, legs unsteady. She made it 3 steps before his voice stopped her. Emma? She looked back. You're not invisible anymore, Luca said quietly. Get used to it. The words followed her out of the room, down the hallway, into the elevator. Her hand shook as she pressed the button for the main floor. The cart of expensive champagne sat forgotten in the VIP lounge. Rita would be furious. Emma found she didn't care. She returned to the chaos of the main ballroom, picked up a fresh tray, resumed her position in the corner. But everything felt different now. The weight of invisibility had lifted, replaced by something far more frightening, the sensation of being thoroughly, completely seen. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Emma pulled it out discreetly. Unknown number. Your shift at Riley's tomorrow has been covered. The car will be at your apartment at 6:45. Don't overthink this, Emma. Just say yes. She stared at the message, heart racing. He'd already made arrangements, already assumed she'd agree. The presumption should have angered her. Instead, Emma found herself typing, "What if I want to overthink it?" The response came immediately. Then overthink it in the car, 6:45. Emma bit back a smile she didn't want to feel. This was insane. She didn't know this man, didn't know what he wanted from her or why he'd focused his attention on someone as broken and ordinary as her. But for the first time in 8 months, Emma felt something other than exhaustion and despair. She felt alive. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Emma served drinks, cleared tables, smiled professionally at people who didn't see her, but inside her mind raced. Luca Moretti. She'd heard the name in passing, whispers about shipping empires and political connections, about power that existed in the spaces between legitimate and illegal. She should be terrified. Maybe she was, but she was also curious and tired of being invisible. At 11:30, Emma clocked out. Rita cornered her in the employee hallway, eyes narrowed. What happened in the VIP lounge? Nothing. I served drinks. For 3 hours? They were particular about their service. Rita's expression said she didn't believe it, but she also didn't push. Fine. You're scheduled Thursday, same shift. Emma nodded, grabbed her jacket, escaped into the cold November night. The subway ride to Queens took 40 minutes. Emma spent it staring at Luca's card, at the embossed numbers that held an entire future she couldn't predict. Her apartment was exactly as she'd left it, small, impersonal, containing only what was necessary. She'd sold everything else to cover debts. Emma showered, changed into an old t-shirt, climbed into bed. Sleep should have come easily. She was exhausted enough. But her mind wouldn't quiet. Luca's words kept playing on repeat. You're not invisible anymore. She pulled out her phone, opened a search browser, typed, Luca Moretti. The results were sparse but telling. A few society page mentions at charity events. Several articles about Moretti International, a shipping and logistics company with operations across 5 continents. Board positions at museums and hospitals. Photographs of a man who looked exactly as controlled and powerful in print as he had in person. But there were gaps. Spaces where information should have been, but wasn't. The kind of careful curation that came with serious money and serious privacy. Emma kept digging. Found a grainy photograph from 15 years ago. A much younger Luca standing beside an older man at some kind of ceremony. The caption identified them as father and son. Antonio and Luca Moretti. She remembered what Luca had said about watching his father die, about bullets and kitchens and understanding power. Emma closed the browser, set down her phone. Tomorrow she'd get in a car with a stranger who knew too much about her, who'd looked into her life without permission, who commanded rooms with quiet intensity, who made promises about seeing her like visibility was something he could grant. It was reckless, possibly dangerous. Emma should cancel, send a text, make an excuse, retreat back into the safety of invisibility. Instead, she got up and opened her closet. The clothes inside were practical, worn, nothing special. But pushed to the back, wrapped in plastic, was a dress she hadn't worn in over a year. Deep green, simple but elegant. Marcus had hated it, said it made her look too severe. Emma pulled it out, held it up to the light. Luca had said to wear whatever made her feel like herself. She hadn't felt like herself in so long, she barely remembered what that meant. But tomorrow, maybe she'd find out. Emma hung the dress on the closet door, climbed back into bed. This time, sleep came faster. And for the first time in months, she didn't dream about drowning. She dreamed about being seen. The next morning arrived with the kind of gray light that made New York look tired. Emma woke at 6:30, hours before she needed to, and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. Her phone sat on the nightstand, silent but somehow loud with possibility. She'd checked it 4 times during the night. No new messages from Luca, nothing to confirm or cancel. Just that single text with its casual assumption that she'd comply. She should be irritated by that, by his certainty. Instead, Emma found herself in the shower by 7, scrubbing away the previous night's exhaustion, trying to remember the last time she'd taken this much care with her appearance. The water ran hot, hotter than she usually allowed herself, given the utility bills, and she stood under the spray longer than necessary. By noon, she'd reorganized her entire closet, cleaned the apartment twice, and nearly talked herself out of going 3 separate times. The green dress still hung on the closet door, waiting. Emma made coffee she didn't drink, ate toast she barely tasted, and watched the clock with the kind of dread anticipation that made her stomach hurt. At 3, she gave up pretending to be productive and started getting ready. Hair down, not up, minimal makeup. She'd never been good at the elaborate kind anyway. The dress fit differently than she remembered, looser. She'd lost weight she couldn't afford to lose. By 6:30, Emma stood in front of her bathroom mirror, barely recognizing herself. Not because she looked different, but because she looked like someone who was trying, someone who hadn't given up completely. Her phone buzzed. 6:40. The car is downstairs. Emma's hands shook as she grabbed her coat, the only one she owned that wasn't actively falling apart, and her purse. She locked the apartment door, took the stairs instead of waiting for the ancient elevator, and stepped out into the cold evening air. A black car idled at the curb. Not a limousine, too obvious, but something sleek and expensive that didn't belong on this street. The driver, a man in his 50s with silver hair and the posture of former military, stepped out and opened the rear door. "Miss Carter," he said. Not a question. Emma nodded, climbed inside before she could reconsider. The interior smelled like leather and something else. That particular scent of wealth Emma had almost forgotten. The seats were heated, soft music played from hidden speakers, and sitting in the far corner, watching her with those dark, unreadable eyes, was Luca Moretti. "You came," he said. "You didn't give me much choice." "You always have a choice, Emma." He was dressed more casually than last night. Dark jeans, black sweater, jacket that probably cost more than her monthly rent. But the intensity remained, that coiled alertness that made him seem perpetually ready for violence. "You look beautiful." "I look tired." "You look like yourself. That's what I asked for." The car pulled smoothly into traffic. Emma's hands twisted in her lap. "Where are we going?" "Dinner, like I said." "Where?" "Does it matter?" "Yes." Luca studied her for a moment, then leaned forward and pressed a button on the console. "Antonio, where are we going?" The driver's voice came through the speakers. "Il Gabbiano, sir, your usual table." Emma recognized the name. Il Gabbiano was one of those restaurants that required reservations months in advance, where a single meal cost what she made in a week. She'd been there once, years ago, with Marcus for their anniversary. He'd complained about the prices the entire time. "Too much?" Luca asked, watching her face. "I don't know yet." "Fair answer." He settled back against the seat, but his attention never wavered. "Tell me about your day." "Why?" "Because I want to know." "I cleaned my apartment, panicked, almost canceled 4 times, cleaned the apartment again, more panicking, got dressed, came downstairs." "What stopped you from canceling?" Emma met his eyes. "Honestly, I don't know. Probably stupidity." "Or curiosity?" "Same thing, maybe." Luca smiled that rare, transformative smile. "Probably. But useful stupidity. The kind that makes life interesting." "Is that what this is? Interesting?" "Among other things." The car wound through Manhattan traffic with the kind of efficiency that came from having a driver who knew every shortcut. Emma watched the city slide past, lights beginning to come on as dusk settled, people hurrying home from work, the familiar chaos that usually made her feel small and lost. Tonight, insulated in this quiet, expensive car, it felt distant, like watching a movie of someone else's life. "You researched me," Luca said. Not a question. Emma startled. "How did you—" "You're intelligent. Of course you researched me. What did you find?" She hesitated, then decided honesty was simpler than games. "Not much. Business profiles, society page mentions. Lots of gaps where information should be." "And what did you conclude from the gaps?" "That you're either very private or very careful." "Both." Luca tilted his head. "What else?" "That your father died when you were young, that you took over his business, that people are careful how they talk about you." "Are you frightened?" Emma considered the question seriously. "I should be." "That's not what I asked." "No, I'm not frightened. Not of you, anyway." "Of what, then?" "Of wanting this." The admission came out quieter than she intended. "Of wanting to be seen so badly I'm sitting in a car with a stranger who invaded my privacy and rearranged my life without asking." Luca was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. "I did invade your privacy. I don't apologize for it. I needed to know who you were. But I won't do it again. Not without your permission. From here forward, Emma, anything you share is your choice. Understood?" "Why should I believe that?" "Because I'm telling you the truth. I don't lie. It's inefficient and unnecessary." He leaned forward slightly. "I want to know you. The real you, not the file summary, but only what you choose to give me." Emma's throat tightened. "What do you want from me?" "I don't know yet. Maybe nothing. Maybe everything. Right now I just want dinner, conversation, your time." His eyes held hers. "Is that acceptable?" It should have been a simple question. Instead, it felt weighted with implications Emma couldn't untangle. "Okay," she said finally. The car pulled up in front of Il Gabbiano, a discreet entrance marked only by a small brass plaque. Antonio opened the door. Luca stepped out first, then offered Emma his hand. She took it, his grip warm and steady, and let him help her onto the sidewalk. Inside, the restaurant was exactly as she remembered. Intimate lighting, white tablecloths, the quiet murmur of conversation from people who never had to check prices. The maitre d' recognized Luca immediately, led them past the main dining room to a private alcove that overlooked the city through floor-to-ceiling windows. "Your usual, Mr. Moretti?" the maitre d' said, pulling out Emma's chair. Luca waited until they were alone before speaking. "Wine?" "I probably shouldn't." "Why not?" "Because I need to keep my head clear around you." "Afraid you'll say something you shouldn't?" "Afraid I already have." Luca signaled the sommelier anyway, ordered in Italian, something Emma didn't understand, but that made the sommelier's eyes light up with approval. When he left, Luca turned back to her. "Ask me something," he said. "What?" "You have questions. Ask them." Emma folded her hands on the table. "Why me?" "I told you last night. No, the real reason. Not the poetic version about seeing strength. Why are you spending time with a broke divorced woman who serves drinks for a living?" Luca didn't answer immediately. The sommelier returned with wine, went through the elaborate ritual of opening and pouring. When he left, Luca took a sip, set down his glass. "When I was 23, he began, voice low and controlled, I took over my father's business. Everyone expected me to fail. I was too young, too American, too soft. They thought I'd sell everything off, take the money, disappear." He met Emma's eyes. "Instead, I spent 5 years rebuilding from the ground up, making enemies, making hard decisions, learning that power requires sacrifice." "What does that have to do with me?" "I'm getting there. Be patient." A slight smile. "In those 5 years, I met hundreds of people. Politicians, business leaders, socialites. Beautiful women who wanted the money. Smart women who wanted the power. Ambitious women who wanted both. Do you know what they all had in common?" Emma shook her head. "They were performing, every single one. Playing roles they thought I wanted to see, and maybe I did want to see those roles. Maybe I encouraged it." He leaned back. "Then last night, I watched you stand in a corner and systematically erase yourself. Not performing invisibility, actually achieving it. And I realized I hadn't seen anything real in years. I'm not special. You survived being erased by someone who was supposed to love you. You work 3 jobs. You get up every morning even though you're drowning. And when I called you out on it, you didn't cry or make excuses. You got angry." His voice dropped. "That's not common, Emma. That's strength most people don't have." The wine sat untouched between them. Emma's chest felt tight. "I don't need saving," she said. "I know. That's the point." Luca's expression shifted, became something almost vulnerable. "I'm not trying to save you. I'm trying to see you. The difference matters." A waiter appeared with menus, recited specials Emma didn't process. She ordered something at random. Luca ordered in Italian again, then waved the waiter away. "Your turn," he said. "Ask me something else." "What happened to your father?" Luca's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "He was murdered. In our home. I was 15. You said you watched. They made me. 3 men. They wanted me to understand the consequences of my father's choices, to be afraid." He took another sip of wine. "It worked for about 6 months. Then I stopped being afraid and started getting even." "Did you?" "Get even?" A dark smile. "Eventually. It took years. But yes." Emma should have been horrified, should have made an excuse and left. Instead, she found herself leaning forward. "What did you do?" "Nothing that would help you sleep better at night." "I already don't sleep well." "Then let's say I learned from my father's mistakes, made sure no one would try that again." Luca's eyes held hers. "Does that frighten you?" "It should. But it doesn't." Emma picked up her wine glass, took a sip. The wine was exquisite, rich, and complex in ways she'd forgotten wine could be. "I think you want me to be frightened. It would be simpler." "How so?" "If I were scared, you could dismiss me. Put me in a box with all the other people who perform for you. But I'm not scared. I'm just tired. And that's harder to categorize." Luca laughed, a real laugh, surprised and genuine. "You're absolutely right. And yes, it's much harder." Their food arrived. Emma had ordered some kind of pasta she couldn't pronounce. It was perfect. Of course it was perfect. Everything here would be perfect. She ate mechanically, hyper-aware of Luca watching her. "Tell me about your marriage," he said. "Why?" "Because it broke you. I want to understand how." Emma set down her fork. "Marcus and I met in college. He was ambitious, charming, had all these plans. I thought I was lucky. Thought he saw something in me worth keeping." She took another sip of wine. "Turns out he saw someone convenient, someone who'd support his career, manage his home, not ask too many questions when he worked late." "When did you realize?" That he was cheating? About a year before I confronted him. But I think part of me knew earlier. I just didn't want to see it. Why not? Because seeing it meant admitting I'd wasted 7 years on someone who didn't love me, meant starting over alone, meant being nothing. Emma's voice cracked slightly. Turns out I did all that anyway. Just delayed it. Luca reached across the table, covered her hand with his. The touch was warm, solid, and Emma's breath caught. He was an idiot, Luca said quietly, and a coward. Anyone who could have you and choose someone else doesn't deserve the oxygen he breathes. You don't know me well enough to say that. I know enough. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. I know you're sitting here with me instead of hiding. That takes courage. Or desperation. Those aren't mutually exclusive. Emma laughed despite herself. You're very direct. Life's too short for games. Luca withdrew his hand and Emma felt the absence like cold air. I spent too many years watching people dance around what they mean. I don't do that anymore. Must be nice. Being able to just say what you want. It is. Try it. What? Say what you want, right now. Be direct with me. Emma met his eyes. I want to know why you're really here. What you actually want from me. Not the philosophical version. The truth. Luca was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. When he spoke, his voice was lower, more intense. I want to know if you're real. If that strength I saw last night is genuine, or if I'm projecting what I want to see. I want to understand how you survived being broken. He paused. I want to see if you'll let me in, or if you're too smart to trust someone like me. Someone like you? Dangerous, controlling. Someone who invades privacy and makes arrangements without asking. You're doing it again, describing yourself the way you think I see you. Am I wrong? Emma considered. No. But you're also more than that. You're lonely. You're tired of people performing. You're looking for something real in a life that's probably all strategy and control. She leaned forward. And you're testing me, seeing if I'll run or stay, if I'm worth the time you're investing. Luca's expression shifted, surprise, followed by something that might have been respect. You're very perceptive. I'm desperate and exhausted. It makes me blunt. I like it. You like that I'm desperate. I like that you're honest. It's rare. He picked up his wine glass. You're right, though. I am testing you. Not cruelly, but yes, I need to know if you'll break. And if I do, then I'll have my answer, and we'll both move on. Emma's heart pounded. That's cold. It's realistic. I don't have time for illusions, Emma. I need to know what I'm dealing with. I'm not a business transaction. No, you're far more complicated. Luca set down his glass, which is exactly why I'm here. They finished dinner in a strange, charged silence. Emma's mind raced with questions she didn't know how to ask. When the check came, discreetly, on a small leather folder, Luca didn't even look at it. Just placed a black credit card inside and handed it back. Walk with me, he said when they stepped outside. Where? Does it matter? Emma pulled her coat tighter. You keep asking me that. Because I keep wondering if you trust me enough to say yes without knowing the destination. That's manipulative. It's a question. Emma looked at him. This dangerous, intense man who'd pulled her out of invisibility and was now asking her to follow him into the unknown. Every rational instinct screamed at her to get in the car, go home, end this before it became something she couldn't control. Instead, she said, okay. They walked. Not aimlessly, but with purpose. Luca leading them through streets Emma half recognized. The city at night had always made her feel small. Now, with Luca beside her, it felt different, contained somehow, like the chaos couldn't touch her. Tell me something you've never told anyone, Luca said after several blocks. Why? Because I asked, and because I think you want to. Emma was quiet for a long time. They passed restaurants and bars, couples holding hands, people hurrying home. Finally, she spoke. Sometimes I'm glad the marriage ended, not because of how it ended, but because it gave me an excuse to stop pretending. Her voice was barely above a whisper. I was so tired of pretending to be happy, to be the perfect wife, to not mind that Marcus looked right through me most days. When it fell apart, part of me was relieved, and I hate myself for that. Why? Because it means I wasted all that time on something I didn't even want. Luca stopped walking, turned to face her. They were on a quieter street now, tree-lined and residential. Or it means you were brave enough to admit the truth, when you couldn't ignore it anymore. Those are different things, Emma. Are they? Yes. He reached out, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was gentle, intimate. You're not weak for being relieved. You're human. Emma's breath caught. Luca was close now, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating off him, smell his cologne, see the way his eyes tracked across her face like he was memorizing every detail. What are we doing? She whispered. I don't know yet, but I want to find out. This is insane. Probably. His hand moved to cup her cheek. But insanity can be useful. Luca, tell me to stop. If you want me to stop, say it. I will. Emma's heart hammered so hard she thought he must be able to hear it. She should tell him to stop, should step back, protect herself, maintain the careful distance that kept her safe. Instead, she leaned into his touch. Luca's other hand came up to frame her face, thumbs brushing across her cheekbones. Emma, he said, voice rough. I need you to understand something. If we do this, whatever this becomes, it won't be simple. My life isn't simple, and I won't pretend otherwise. I don't want simple. I want real. Real can be dangerous. I don't care. He smiled, that rare, beautiful smile. Liar. You care, but you're choosing it anyway. Then he kissed her. It wasn't gentle. There was nothing tentative about the way Luca kissed. It was claiming and thorough and absolutely deliberate. His hands held her face like she was something precious and breakable, but his mouth was demanding, hungry. Emma's hands fisted in his jacket, pulling him closer, and she kissed him back with all the desperation and loneliness she'd been holding in for months. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Luca rested his forehead against hers. Come home with me, he said. Emma's eyes opened. What? Not for that. Not yet. Just come with me. Stay. Talk. Let me see you. His voice was raw, more vulnerable than she'd heard it. Please, Emma. She should say no, should protect herself, maintain boundaries, not fall into this too fast. Okay, she heard herself say. The car was waiting 2 blocks away. Antonio somehow always knew where to be. Emma slid into the back seat, Luca beside her, the space between them charged with possibility. His hand found hers, laced their fingers together. Where do you live? Emma asked. Not far. Tribeca. Of course, Tribeca. Where else would someone like Luca Moretti live? The drive took 15 minutes. They didn't speak, but Luca's thumb traced circles on the back of Emma's hand, a small, grounding touch that kept her from spiraling into panic. The building was exactly what Emma expected. Modern, sleek, with a doorman who nodded respectfully as they entered. The elevator required a key card. They rode up in silence to the top floor. Luca's apartment was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, minimalist furniture that somehow felt warm rather than sterile, artwork that was probably worth more than Emma's entire life. But what struck her most was how lived in it felt. Books on the coffee table, a jacket thrown over a chair, coffee mug in the sink. It's beautiful, Emma said. It's home. Luca shrugged off his jacket. Would you like something to drink? Coffee? Wine? Water? Water's fine. He disappeared into the kitchen. Emma wandered to the windows, looked out at the city sprawling below. From up here, New York looked manageable. Beautiful even. Not the exhausting chaos she navigated every day, but something almost peaceful. Here. Luca handed her a glass, stood beside her at the window. What are you thinking? That this feels unreal. Yesterday, I was invisible. Today, I'm standing in a penthouse with a man I barely know who kisses like he's trying to prove something. Was I? Trying to prove something? Yes. Emma looked at him. I don't know. Were you? Luca set down his glass, turned to face her fully. I was trying to show you I meant what I said, that I see you, that this, whatever this is, isn't a game or a test. It's real, Emma, at least for me. How can it be real? You don't know me. Then let me. Stay tonight. Talk to me. Tell me things. Let me tell you things. We'll figure out the rest as we go. Emma's hands shook. I'm scared. Of me? Of wanting this. Of needing it. Of forgetting how to protect myself. Luca moved closer, took the water glass from her hands and set it aside. Then he pulled her into his arms, not sexually, just holding her. His chin rested on top of her head, one hand stroking her back in slow, soothing circles. You don't have to forget, he murmured. Just lower the walls enough to let me in. I won't hurt you, Emma. Not intentionally. And if I do, you call me on it. You fight back. You don't disappear. Understood? Emma's arms came around his waist, holding on like he was the only solid thing in a tilting world. Okay. They stood like that for a long time, long enough that Emma's breathing slowed, her heartbeat steadied. When they finally separated, Luca led her to the couch, pulled her down beside him. Tell me about before, he said. Before Marcus, before the divorce. Who were you? Emma leaned back against the cushions. I don't know anymore. Feels like a different person. Try anyway. So she did. She told him about college, about her degree in communications, about the job she'd loved at a small marketing firm before it got bought out and she got laid off, about friends she'd lost touch with, hobbies she'd abandoned, dreams she'd stopped having. Luca listened without interrupting, his attention absolute. When she finished, he was quiet for a moment. You gave up a lot, he said finally. I gave up everything. No, you gave up who you thought you had to be. There's a difference. He turned toward her. The woman you were describing, she sounds nice, safe, but not particularly happy. I was happy enough. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Emma laughed bitterly. What about you? Were you happy? No, but I've never pretended to be. Happiness isn't something I expect. What do you expect? Control, success, survival. Moments of satisfaction when things go according to plan. He paused. And lately, something else. Something I don't have a name for yet. What? This. You. The feeling that maybe there's more than just control and survival. Emma's throat tightened. Luca, I know. Too much, too fast. But I told you I don't lie. This is the truth, Emma. I don't know what this becomes, but I want to find out. They talked until 3 a.m. Luca told her about rebuilding his father's business, about the enemies he'd made, the compromises he'd accepted. Emma told him about the months after her divorce, about working 3 jobs, about the panic attacks she had at 2 a.m. when the bills came due. Somewhere around 4, Emma fell asleep on the couch, her head on Luca's shoulder. She woke to sunlight streaming through the windows and a blanket tucked around her. Luca sat in a nearby chair, laptop open, already working. Morning, he said without looking up. Emma sat up, disoriented. What time is it? 9:30. I let you sleep. I have work at noon. Covered. I called Rita this morning, told her you had a family emergency. Emma's chest tightened. You can't keep doing that, rearranging my life. You're right. I'm sorry. Luca closed the laptop, gave her his full attention. From now on, I ask first. Deal? Deal. She pulled the blanket tighter. Why are you being so nice to me? Because you deserve it, and because I want to. He stood, moved to sit beside her. Emma, I need you to understand something. My world, the one I live in, it's not safe, it's not simple. People want things from me, power, money, access, and they'll use whatever leverage they can find. Are you trying to scare me? I'm trying to be honest. If we do this, if you let me into your life the way I want to be, it comes with risks. People will notice, they'll ask questions. Some of them might try to use you to get to me. Emma's stomach churned. Then maybe we shouldn't. Or maybe we should anyway. But you need to know what you're choosing. She looked at him, this powerful, dangerous man who'd somehow decided she was worth his time. What are you asking me? To trust me. To let this be what it is. To not run when things get complicated. His hand found hers. To see where this goes. Emma thought about her apartment in Queens, about her 3 jobs, about the invisible life she'd been living, the slow erosion of herself into nothing. Then she thought about last night, about being seen, about Luca's hands on her face, his absolute attention, the way he looked at her like she mattered. "Okay," she said. "Okay? Yes. Let's see where this goes." Luca smiled, and Emma realized she'd do almost anything to see that smile again. They spent the day together. Luca worked while Emma read. He had an entire library she got lost in. They ordered lunch, talked more. At some point, Emma realized she was comfortable. Actually comfortable for the first time in months. By evening, she knew she was in trouble. Not because Luca was dangerous, though he was, but because she was already falling. And falling, Emma knew, was the most dangerous thing of all. 3 weeks later, Emma still hadn't moved her toothbrush into Luca's bathroom, but she'd stopped going home most nights. It happened gradually. One night became 2, then 4, then she couldn't remember the last time she'd slept in her own bed. Her apartment sat mostly empty in Queens, accumulating dust and unpaid bills she kept meaning to deal with. Luca never asked her to stay. He just made space, cleared a drawer in his dresser, bought the coffee she liked, left a key on the counter one morning with no explanation, just that small metal promise that she was welcome. Emma should have been terrified by how fast everything was moving. Instead, she felt like she'd been holding her breath for years and finally remembered how to exhale. But the cracks were starting to show. "You need to eat something," Luca said one morning, watching Emma push scrambled eggs around her plate. They sat at his kitchen island, sunlight streaming through the windows, the city waking up below them. "I'm not hungry." "You haven't been hungry in 3 days. That's concerning." Emma set down her fork. "I'm fine." "You're not. Talk to me." She wanted to tell him about the nightmare she'd had last night. Marcus's face morphing into Luca's, both of them walking away while she screamed. About the panic that gripped her chest sometimes when she woke up in this expensive apartment and couldn't remember how she'd gotten here. About the feeling that she was playing a role she didn't understand, waiting for the moment Luca realized she wasn't worth the effort. Instead, she said, "I'm just tired." Luca's jaw tightened. He stood, carried his plate to the sink, rinsed it with precise, controlled movements. "You're lying to me." "I'm not, Emma." He turned to face her. "I told you I don't lie. I also don't accept lies. If something's wrong, tell me. If you need space, tell me. But don't sit there and pretend you're fine when you're clearly not." "Maybe I don't know what's wrong. Did you consider that?" "Then we figure it out together. That's how this works." Emma laughed bitterly. "This? You keep saying that word like we both know what it means. But I don't, Luca. I don't know what this is or what you want from me or why I'm here." His expression shifted, something that might have been hurt flashing across his features before he controlled it. "You're here because I want you here, because you chose to stay. That's what this is." "For how long? Until you get bored? Until you realize I'm just a broke, divorced woman with baggage and panic attacks and nothing to offer someone like you?" "Someone like me." "Yes. Someone powerful and successful and who could have anyone." "Why me, Luca? What am I to you besides a project? A charity case you're fixing?" The silence that followed was sharp enough to cut. Luca moved toward her slowly, carefully, like approaching something fragile. He crouched beside her stool, forcing her to meet his eyes. "You think I'm here out of pity?" "I don't know what to think." "Then let me clarify." His voice was low, intense. 3 weeks ago, I met a woman who'd survived being erased and was still standing, who looked at me without fear or calculation, who kissed me back like she'd been starving for something real. That woman is you, Emma. Not a project, not charity. You. Emma's eyes burned with tears she refused to let fall. "I don't know how to do this. Be with someone. Trust someone. I'm broken, Luca. Marcus broke me, and I don't know if I can—" "Stop." His hands came up to frame her face. "You're not broken. You're hurt. There's a difference, and I'm not Marcus. I won't ask you to erase yourself. I won't get bored. I won't leave when things get hard." His thumbs brushed across her cheekbones. "But you have to let me in. Actually, let me in. Not just physically, but all of it. The nightmares, the panic, the fear. Give me the truth, Emma. Even when it's ugly." "What if the truth is that I'm terrified? That I wake up every morning waiting for you to realize I'm not worth this?" "Then I'd say you're wrong. And I'd keep showing you until you believed me." He leaned forward, rested his forehead against hers. I'm not going anywhere. Get that through your stubborn head. Emma's breath hitched. You're bossy. You're infuriating. We barely know each other. I know enough. He pulled back slightly, met her eyes. I know you take your coffee with too much sugar. I know you read mystery novels when you can't sleep. I know you're brilliant and kind and stronger than you think, and I know I want more of this. More of you, all of you, Emma. The good parts and the messy parts. Everything. The tears came then, hot and unstoppable. Luca pulled her off the stool, wrapped her in his arms, and held her while she cried, ugly, gasping sobs she'd been holding back for weeks. He didn't tell her it was okay, didn't make empty promises, just held her, one hand stroking her hair, the other pressed against her back. When she finally stopped, Emma felt hollowed out but lighter. Sorry, she whispered against his chest. Don't apologize for being human. I got your shirt wet. I own other shirts. He kissed the top of her head. Better? Maybe. Ask me later. I will. Luca eased back, tipped her chin up. But right now, I need you to do something for me. What? Quit your jobs. Emma blinked. What? The plaza, Riley's, whatever other shifts you're working. Quit them. Today. Luca, I can't just... Yes, you can. You hate those jobs. They're killing you slowly. Quit them. Emma pulled away, putting distance between them. And do what? Live off you? Become dependent on a man again? That's exactly what I'm trying to avoid. I'm not asking you to be dependent. I'm asking you to stop drowning long enough to breathe. He leaned against the counter, arms crossed. You're exhausted, Emma. You barely sleep. You don't eat. You work yourself to the bone for jobs that don't appreciate you. It's not sustainable. Neither is letting you pay for everything. Why not? Because of what happens when this ends? When you get tired of me and I'm left with nothing again? Luca's expression hardened. When are you going to stop waiting for me to leave? When are you going to prove you won't? They stared at each other, the air between them crackling with tension. Emma's heart pounded. She wanted to take it back, to apologize, to smooth things over. But part of her, the part that had survived Marcus, needed to push, to test, to see if Luca would stay when she wasn't easy. You want proof? Luca said finally, voice dangerous and quiet. Fine. Come with me. Where? Just come. He didn't wait for her to agree. Just walked toward his office, the small room off the main living area Emma had only glimpsed a few times. She followed, uncertain. The office was surprisingly sparse. A desk, computer, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves. Luca pulled a folder from a drawer, handed it to Emma. Open it. She did. Inside were legal documents, dense with text she didn't understand. But one phrase caught her eye. Emma Carter, beneficiary. What is this? A trust. In your name. Enough to cover your debts, 6 months of living expenses, and a safety net if you decide you want to go back to school or start a business or do anything else. Luca's voice was matter-of-fact. It's irrevocable. Whether you stay with me or leave tomorrow, it's yours. No strings attached. Emma's hands shook. Why would you? Because I meant what I said. I'm not Marcus. I'm not going to leave you with nothing, and I'm not going to let you destroy yourself out of fear. He moved closer. I want you here, Emma. With me. But I want you healthy and whole, not barely surviving. This takes away the financial pressure. The rest is your choice. This is too much. It's insurance for both of us. You stop worrying about money. I stop watching you kill yourself. Everybody wins. Emma stared at the documents, her vision blurring. I don't know what to say. Say you'll quit those jobs. Say you'll let me take care of this part so you can focus on healing, on us, on figuring out who you want to be now. Luca, please, Emma, let me do this. The plea in his voice broke her. Emma looked up at him, this powerful, controlling man who was asking, not demanding, who'd set up a safety net without telling her, just to prove he wouldn't let her fall. Okay, she whispered. Relief flooded Luca's features. He took the folder from her hand, set it aside, and kissed her, not with the hunger of before, but something softer, grateful. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. Thank you, he murmured. For what? You just gave me... for trusting me. even a little. He pulled back, framed her face with his hands. I know it's hard. I know I'm asking a lot, but I meant what I said, Emma. I'm not going anywhere, and eventually you'll believe me. Emma wanted to believe him, desperately, but trust was a muscle she'd forgotten how to use. They spent the rest of the morning on the couch, Luca working on his laptop while Emma read. It felt domestic and strange and terrifying in its simplicity. By afternoon, Emma had drafted resignation emails to Rita and the bar manager. By evening, she'd hit send. How does it feel? Luca asked, pulling her against his side. Scary. Liberating. I don't know yet. Give it time. 2 days later, Emma woke to her phone buzzing with calls from a number she didn't recognize. She ignored the first 3, answered the 4th. Hello? Emma Carter? A woman's voice, professional and clipped. Yes? This is Jennifer Walsh from the Daily Observer. I'm calling about your relationship with Luca Moretti. Do you have any comment on the recent allegations? Emma's stomach dropped. What allegations? You haven't seen the article? It went live an hour ago. Photos of you and Mr. Moretti. Questions about the nature of your relationship, his business dealings, whether you're aware of... Emma hung up. Her hand shook as she opened a browser, typed Luca's name. The results made her want to vomit. Mystery woman in Moretti's penthouse. Who is Emma Carter? The headline screamed. Below it, photos. Her and Luca at dinner, leaving his building, walking through the city. The article speculated about her background, mentioned her divorce, implied she was some kind of opportunist latching onto a wealthy man. But worse were the other articles. The ones that suggested Luca's business wasn't entirely legitimate, that connected him to people with criminal ties, that asked whether Emma knew who she was sleeping with. Emma? She looked up. Luca stood in the bedroom doorway, already dressed for the day. His expression shifted from concern to furious as he saw her phone. They found us, Emma said, her voice hollow. Luca crossed the room in 3 strides, took the phone from her hands. His jaw clenched as he read. Pack a bag. What? Pack a bag. We're leaving, now. Luca, what? There are photographers outside the building, reporters. They've been there since 6 this morning. His voice was tight with controlled rage. I should have expected this, should have prepared you. I'm sorry, Emma. I'm so sorry. Emma's brain felt sluggish, disconnected. What are they saying about you? The criminal ties? Nothing that's true, and nothing that matters right now. He pulled her to her feet. Right now, we need to get you somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find you. I'm not running. This isn't running. This is strategic retreat until things calm down. How long? I don't know. Days, maybe weeks. Emma pulled away from him. No. Emma, I said no. I'm not hiding. I'm not going to let them chase me away. This isn't about chasing you away. It's about protecting you from what? Reporters? Bad press? I don't care about any of that. She grabbed her phone back, scrolled through the articles. But I do care about this. About whether any of it's true. Are you involved in illegal business, Luca? Do you have criminal connections? His expression went carefully blank. It's complicated. That's not an answer. Emma, do you or don't you? Luca was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was measured, controlled. My business is legitimate, but the world I operate in isn't black and white. I deal with people who aren't always clean. I make compromises. And yes, some of those compromises involve gray areas that could be interpreted as criminal if someone wanted to push hard enough. Emma's chest tightened. What kind of gray areas? The kind that keep my business running and my people safe. The kind that don't hurt anyone who doesn't deserve it. The kind I'm not going to apologize for, Emma, because they're necessary in my world. Your world, not mine. They're the same world now. Or they were, until this morning. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration breaking through his control. I told you it wouldn't be simple. I warned you that people would try to use you to get to me. This is what I meant. Emma sank onto the bed, her legs suddenly weak. What do they want from me? Information, leverage, something they can use against me. Or they just want a story. Doesn't matter which. The result is the same. Your life gets dissected for public consumption. So what do I do? You let me handle it. You stay here, stay quiet, and let my lawyers deal with the press. Hide, you mean? Protect yourself. Emma looked up at him. Is any of it true? What they're saying about us? That I'm using you for money, that I'm... Stop. Luca crouched in front of her, hands on her knees. Nothing they're saying matters. Not what they think of you, not what they think of us. The only truth that matters is what we know. And we know this is real, right? Right, Emma whispered, not entirely sure she believed it. Then we ignore them. We don't give them anything. We wait it out. And if it doesn't blow over? It will. How do you know? Because I've dealt with worse, and because I won't let them destroy what we're building. His hands tightened on her knees. Trust me, Emma, please. She wanted to, but the articles had opened a window into a world she didn't understand, a world where Luca made gray area compromises and dealt with dangerous people, a world she'd willingly walked into without asking enough questions. I need some air, Emma said, standing. I'll come with you. No, I need to be alone, just for a little while, to think. Luca's expression shuddered. If you leave this building, they'll follow you. They'll ask questions, take photos. It'll be worse. Then I'll stay inside. But I need space, Luca. Just a few hours. Can you give me that? He studied her face, and Emma saw the exact moment he decided not to push. Okay, I have a meeting downtown anyway. I'll be back by 4. We'll talk then. Okay? Luca kissed her forehead, grabbed his jacket, and left. The apartment felt enormous and empty without him. Emma spent the next 3 hours spiraling. She read every article, watched herself become a character in a story she didn't recognize. The comments were vicious, people who'd never met her deciding she was a gold digger, a whore, an opportunist, people who defended Luca and tore her apart for daring to be with him. By the time her phone rang again, Emma was numb. Hello? Emma, it's Marcus. Her ex-husband's voice hit like ice water. How did you get this number? Saw the articles. Figured you might need someone to talk to. He sounded smug, satisfied. Luca Moretti. Really? You couldn't find someone a little less dangerous? What do you want, Marcus? Just checking in, making sure you're okay. This kind of attention can be overwhelming. I'm fine. Are you? Because the Emma I knew couldn't handle pressure. Remember when you fell apart over a bad performance review? This is so much worse. Emma's hands clenched. The Emma you knew doesn't exist anymore. Clearly. The Emma I knew had standards, wouldn't have jumped into bed with some criminal. He's not a criminal. You sure about that? The articles say, I don't care what the articles say, and I don't care what you think. We're divorced, Marcus. You don't get an opinion on my life anymore. I'm just trying to help. When this blows up, and it will, you're going to need somewhere to land. I can help with that. The offer was so transparent, so pathetic, that Emma almost laughed. Let me guess. You and your wife are having problems. You're realizing she's not as easy as you thought, so now you're sniffing around to see if I'm desperate enough to take you back. Marcus's silence confirmed it. Here's what's going to happen, Emma said, her voice steady and cold. You're going to delete my number. You're going to never contact me again. And you're going to tell yourself whatever story you need to sleep at night. But stay out of my life, Marcus. I mean it. She hung up before he could respond, blocked the number with shaking hands. The apartment felt suffocating suddenly. Emma grabbed her coat, rode the elevator down to the lobby. The doorman, she still didn't know his name, looked alarmed. Miss Carter, Mr. Moretti said, I know what he said. I'm just going outside, just for a minute. She pushed through the door before he could stop her. The photographers descended immediately. 5 of them, maybe 6, cameras flashing, voices overlapping. Emma, look here. How long have you been seeing Mr. Moretti? Are you aware of his business dealings? What do you say to people who call you a gold digger? Emma froze on the sidewalk, overwhelmed by the chaos. The cameras, the questions, the strangers who thought they had a right to her life. She opened her mouth to speak, though what she would have said, she didn't know. Then a hand gripped her arm, firm and unyielding. That's enough. Luca's voice cut through the noise like a blade. He'd appeared from nowhere, positioned himself between Emma and the cameras. Ms. Carter has no comment. Leave her alone. Mr. Moretti, just a few questions. I said no. The absolute command in his voice made even the photographer step back. Luca guided Emma back toward the building, his body shielding her from the cameras. Inside, the lobby was blessedly quiet. Emma's legs gave out. Luca caught her, supported her weight, and she realized she was shaking. I'm sorry, she gasped. I just needed air. I didn't think... It's okay. You're okay. He held her upright, one arm around her waist. Let's get you upstairs. Back in the apartment, Emma collapsed on the couch. Luca disappeared, returned with water and a blanket. He wrapped it around her shoulders, sat beside her. I thought you had a meeting, Emma said. I did. Canceled it. Why? Because I had a feeling you might do something reckless. Turns out I was right. No accusation in his voice, just facts. What made you go outside? Marcus called. Luca's expression went dangerous. What did he say? That I couldn't handle the pressure, that I should call him when this falls apart, that you're a criminal and I'm an idiot. Emma laughed bitterly. Actually, he might be right about that last part. He's not. Luca pulled her against him. And he's a coward for calling you when you're vulnerable. Did he threaten you? No, just offered to help when you inevitably destroy me. I'm not going to destroy you. Aren't you? Emma pulled back to look at him. Luca, I can't leave your building without being attacked by photographers. My ex-husband thinks I'm pathetic. The internet thinks I'm a whore, and I don't even know if you're telling me the truth about your business. How is this not destroying me? Because you're still here, still fighting. That's not destruction, Emma. That's survival. I'm so tired of surviving. I know you are. He kissed her forehead. But you're not alone anymore. You understand that? Whatever this is, whatever comes next, you're not alone. Emma wanted to believe him, but the gap between wanting and believing felt impossibly wide. What now? She asked. Now we wait. The story will die down. Something else will become more interesting, and in the meantime, we stay here, together. We don't give them anything else to talk about. How long? As long as it takes. Emma closed her eyes, leaned into Luca's warmth. Outside, the city hummed with life. Somewhere, photographers waited to capture her next mistake. Articles were being written, comments posted, judgments made by people who knew nothing about her. But here, in Luca's arms, the world felt smaller, manageable, like maybe she could survive this after all. Emma, Luca said quietly, I need you to promise me something. What? Don't run. When this gets hard, and it will get harder, don't run. Stay. Fight with me if you need to. Yell at me. Push back. But don't disappear. Can you promise me that? Emma thought about Marcus. About 7 years of disappearing piece by piece until nothing remained. About the invisible woman she'd become. Serving champagne to people who didn't see her. She thought about Luca's hands on her face. His absolute attention. The way he looked at her like she mattered. I promise, she said. And she meant it, even if part of her was already wondering how long she could keep a promise like that. The story didn't die down. If anything, it grew teeth. By the end of the week, Emma's face was everywhere. Tabloid covers, gossip blogs, even a segment on the local news. Someone had dug up her college photos, her wedding pictures with Marcus, her LinkedIn profile from the marketing job. They'd tracked down former coworkers who said she was quiet, unremarkable. One particularly vicious article quoted an anonymous source claiming Emma had always been desperate for validation from powerful men. Emma stopped reading after that one. Luca's lawyers sent cease and desist letters, threatened lawsuits, made the kind of phone calls that usually made problems disappear. But the internet didn't care about lawyers. It cared about scandal, and Emma was the perfect target, a nobody who'd somehow landed in the bed of one of New York's most powerful men. You need to eat, Luca said for the third time that evening. They sat at his dining table, untouched plates of food between them. It had been 4 days since Emma had ventured outside. 4 days of watching herself get torn apart by strangers. I'm not hungry. You haven't eaten since breakfast. That was toast. Half a piece of toast. I said I'm not hungry. Luca set down his fork with deliberate care. This isn't sustainable, Emma. You can't just stop living because some tabloids are running their mouths. Can I? She looked at him, saw the frustration he was trying to hide. What exactly am I supposed to do, Luca? Go outside so they can take more pictures? Post some statement on social media defending myself? Pretend none of this is happening? You're supposed to trust that I'm handling it. Are you? Because it seems like it's getting worse. These things take time. How much time? A week? A month? A year? Emma stood, paced to the windows. The city lights blurred through her exhausted vision. I can't live like this, trapped in here watching people decide who I am when they don't know anything about me. Then let me give them something else to talk about. Luca stood as well, moved toward her. Come to the Hartwell Foundation dinner with me tomorrow night. Show them you're not hiding, that we're together and we don't give a damn what they think. Emma laughed, the sound harsh and broken. You want me to parade myself in front of the same people who are calling me a gold digger? That's your solution? My solution is showing them you're not afraid, that you belong with me. But I don't belong with you. Don't you get that? The words came out louder than she intended. I'm a broke divorced woman who served you champagne. You're this. All of this. She gestured at this apartment. The expensive everything. The life so far removed from hers it might as well be another planet. I don't belong in your world, Luca. The press is just saying out loud what everyone's thinking. That's not true. Isn't it? Be honest. If you saw someone like me with someone like you, what would you think? Luca's jaw clenched. I think I didn't know the whole story, and I'd mind my own business. You're not everyone. No. I'm the person who chose you. Who wants you here? Doesn't that count for something? Emma turned away, pressed her forehead against the cool glass. I don't know anymore. Nothing feels real, including this. The silence that followed was heavy enough to crush. When Luca spoke again, his voice was carefully controlled, too controlled. What are you saying? I don't know what I'm saying. I need to think. About what? About whether this is worth it, whether I'm strong enough for this. Emma, don't. She held up a hand without turning around. Don't tell me I'm strong enough. Don't tell me we'll get through this. Just give me space, please. She felt him behind her, close enough to touch, but not touching. Felt the weight of everything he wasn't saying. Then his footsteps retreated. A door closed somewhere in the apartment. Emma sank to the floor, knees pulled to her chest, and finally let herself cry. She woke the next morning alone in bed. Sunlight streamed through windows she'd forgotten to cover. Her phone showed 8 missed calls from numbers she didn't recognize and 3 texts from Luca. The first, I'm at the office, take your time. The second, the dinner starts at 7. I'd like you to come with me, but only if you want to. The third, I meant what I said. You're not alone, even when you feel like you are. Emma stared at the messages until her vision blurred. Part of her wanted to text back to apologize for last night, to say yes to the dinner and prove she could handle this. The other part, the part that had learned self-preservation the hard way, wanted to pack her things and disappear before she got hurt worse. She did neither. Just lay in Luca's expensive sheets, in his expensive apartment, feeling like an imposter in someone else's life. By noon, Emma had showered and dressed in clothes that still felt too nice for her. She found coffee already made in the kitchen, Luca's doing, obviously, and forced herself to drink it. The apartment felt different without him in it, bigger, colder, like it was just a space instead of a home. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Emma almost didn't answer. Hello? Ms. Carter, this is Detective Sarah Chen with the NYPD. I need to speak with you about Luca Moretti. Emma's stomach dropped. What about him? I'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to the precinct? Or I can come to you. What is this about? Mr. Moretti's business dealings. We have some questions about your knowledge of his activities. It would be better if we talked face to face. Emma's hands shook. Am I in trouble? Not at all. We're just gathering information, but the sooner we talk, the better. Every instinct screamed at her to call Luca. To tell him about this call, get his lawyers involved, not say anything without representation. But another part of her, the part that was tired of being in the dark, wanted answers. I'll come to you, Emma heard herself say. Where? Detective Chen gave her an address in Midtown. Emma wrote it down with numb fingers, hung up, and stared at her phone. She should call Luca. She absolutely should call Luca. Instead, she grabbed her coat and left. The precinct was exactly like every police station she'd seen in movies. Fluorescent lights, scuffed floors, the smell of burnt coffee, and bureaucracy. Detective Chen met her in the lobby, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and a kind smile that didn't quite reach those eyes. "Ms. Carter, thank you for coming in. This way." She led Emma to a small interview room. No windows, gray walls, a table with 2 chairs. Emma's heart pounded. "Am I being interrogated?" "Not at all. Just a conversation." Detective Chen sat, gestured for Emma to do the same. "Can I get you anything? Water? Coffee?" "I'm fine. But what do you want to know?" "How long have you been in a relationship with Luca Moretti?" "About a month. Why?" "And in that month, has he discussed his business with you? Where his money comes from? Who he works with?" Emma's throat tightened. "He runs a shipping company, Moretti International." "Has he told you about his other interests? His connections to certain families in New York and New Jersey?" "What families?" Detective Chen slid a folder across the table. "These families. Take a look." Emma opened it. Inside were surveillance photos. Luca at dinner with men she didn't recognize. Luca shaking hands outside what looked like a warehouse. Luca in conversation with someone the caption identified as known associate of the Castellano organization. "I don't understand," Emma said, though she was starting to. "Miss Carter, Luca Moretti is under investigation for racketeering, money laundering, and conspiracy. We believe he's been facilitating illegal activities through his shipping business, moving contraband, laundering money for organized crime." Detective Chen leaned forward. "We need to know what you know, what he's told you, what you've seen." Emma's vision swam. "He told me his business was legitimate, and you believed him?" Yes. "Has he introduced you to any business associates, taken you to meetings, asked you to carry packages or deliver messages?" "No, nothing like that. We've barely left his apartment since the press—" Emma stopped. "Wait, am I a suspect?" "Not if you cooperate. But if you're knowingly aiding his activities, that changes things." "I'm not aiding anything. I don't know anything about his business." "Then help us understand the relationship. How did you meet? How did this start?" Emma told the story. The gala, the VIP lounge, Luca's intensity and attention. As she spoke, she watched Detective Chen's expression shift from neutral to something that looked almost like pity. "Ms. Carter, do you realize how this looks?" "How what looks?" "A powerful man under federal investigation suddenly begins a relationship with a woman who has significant debt and no resources. A woman he researched thoroughly before approaching. A woman he's now isolated in his home, paying her bills, controlling her access to the outside world." Emma's chest constricted. "It's not like that." "Isn't it? You quit your jobs at his request. You live in his apartment. You depend on him financially. If we were to bring charges against Mr. Moretti, you'd be a very vulnerable witness, or a very convenient one, depending on how this plays out. I don't know anything about criminal activity. Maybe not consciously, but you might know more than you think. Phone calls you've overheard, names he's mentioned, packages delivered to the apartment." Detective Chen pulled out a notepad. "I need you to think carefully, Ms. Carter. Has anything seemed off, suspicious? Has Mr. Moretti ever asked you to do something that made you uncomfortable?" Emma thought about the trust fund, about Luca's insistence that she quit her jobs, about the way he always knew where she was, what she was doing, about the security, the lawyers, the careful control of every situation. "No," she said, but her voice wavered. "You don't sound certain." "I'm certain. Luca hasn't done anything wrong." "Then you won't mind if we monitor your communications. For your protection, of course, in case Mr. Moretti tries to use you." "I want a lawyer." Detective Chen sat back. "You're not under arrest, Ms. Carter. You don't need a lawyer." "Then I'm leaving." Emma stood, legs shaking. "Wait, Mom." Detective Chen stood as well. "I know this is overwhelming. I know you care about him, but Luca Moretti is dangerous. The people he's involved with, they don't have loyalty. They have leverage. And right now, you're his biggest vulnerability. If things go bad, you'll be the first person they target. I'm trying to help you. By accusing the man I'm with of being a criminal? By telling you the truth, which is more than he's done." Detective Chen handed Emma a card. "My number. When you're ready to talk, really talk, call me, before it's too late. Emma took the card with numb fingers, walked out of the precinct on legs that barely held her. The street outside was crowded, loud, overwhelming. She hailed a cab, gave Luca's address, and spent the ride trying to breathe. The apartment was still empty when she arrived. Emma went straight to Luca's office, the room she'd only entered once before. She told herself she was just looking, just trying to understand. But her hands shook as she opened drawers, rifled through files, searched for something that would prove Detective Chen wrong. Instead, she found a locked safe in the bottom drawer. Emma stared at it for a long moment. Then she tried the code Luca used for everything, the date his father died. The safe clicked open. Inside were passports. 3 of them, all with Luca's photo but different names. Cash. More cash than Emma had ever seen, bundled and organized. And a handgun, black and compact and terrifying. Looking for something? Emma spun. Luca stood in the doorway, his expression unreadable. She hadn't heard him come in. Words failed her. Luca's eyes went to the open safe, then back to Emma's face. You went through my things. The police called me. They asked me to come in. They showed me photos of you with criminals. They said you're under investigation for... Her voice broke. Tell me it's not true. Close the safe, Emma. Tell me first. Close it. Then we'll talk. Emma slammed the safe shut, stood on trembling legs. The passports, the gun. What are you, Luca? What have you gotten me into? He moved into the room slowly, carefully. I told you my world wasn't simple. That's not an answer. It's the only one I can give you right now. That's not good enough. Emma's voice rose. The police think I'm helping you commit crimes. They think you're using me. They think... She pressed her hands to her face. Are you? Using me? No, never. How do I know that? How do I know anything you've told me is true? Luca's jaw clenched. Because I'm telling you it is. Because I've never lied to you. You've never told me the whole truth either. Gray areas, you said, compromises. What does that actually mean, Luca? What have you done? Things I'm not proud of. Things that were necessary. Things I'd do again if I had to. That's not specific enough. It's all you get, for your protection and mine. Emma laughed bitterly. My protection? That's rich. The police want me to inform on you. The press wants to destroy me. And you won't even tell me what I'm protecting. Because the less you know, the safer you are. I don't feel safe. I feel trapped and stupid, and like I've made the worst mistake of my life. The words hung between them, sharp and irretrievable. Luca's expression didn't change, but something in his eyes went cold. Is that what you think? His voice was quiet, dangerous. That I'm a mistake? Emma's hands clenched into fists. I think I don't know you. I think I've been living in a fantasy where a powerful man saw something special in me, and I was too desperate to ask why. I think I'm exactly as pathetic as everyone says I am. Stop it. Why? It's true. I'm a mess, Luca. A broken mess who jumped into bed with a man who might be a criminal because he paid attention to me. What does that make me? It makes you human. It makes you someone who wanted to be seen. There's nothing wrong with that. There is when the person doing the seeing is lying. I'm not lying. I'm protecting you from things you don't need to carry. That's not your choice to make. Yes, it is. Luca's control finally cracked. You want the truth, Emma? Fine. Yes, I've done things that aren't strictly legal. Yes, I know people the police would love to arrest. Yes, my business operates in gray areas because that's how business works at this level. But I have never hurt anyone who didn't deserve it. I have never used you, and I have never lied about wanting you here. How do I believe that when you won't tell me what you've actually done? You believe it because you know me, the real me, not the version the police want you to see. Do I? Know you? Emma's voice cracked. Because right now I feel like I don't know anything. Luca ran a hand through his hair, and Emma saw how exhausted he looked, how the strain of the past week had worn him down too. What do you want from me, Emma? What would make you feel safe? The truth. All of it. No more gray areas or vague explanations. If I'm risking everything to be with you, I deserve to know what I'm risking it for. And if the truth makes you leave, then I leave. But at least I'll be making an informed choice instead of stumbling around in the dark. They stared at each other across the small office. The city hummed beyond the windows, indifferent to their crisis. Finally, Luca moved to the desk, sat heavily in his chair. "Sit," he said. Emma sat. "My father built his business on two things," Luca began, voice flat and tired: legitimate shipping and less legitimate favors. He moved cargo for people who couldn't move it themselves. Sometimes that cargo was legal, sometimes it wasn't. He didn't ask questions. He just got paid. What kind of cargo? Does it matter? Yes, Luca sighed. Everything. Stolen goods, cash that needed to disappear. Occasionally things I'd rather not describe. He justified it by saying he wasn't the one committing the crimes, just facilitating movement, like a taxi driver isn't responsible for where his passengers go. But he was responsible. Yes, and it got him killed. The men who shot him wanted to send a message to everyone he worked with, that there were consequences to playing both sides. Emma's throat tightened. And you took over his business. I took over the legitimate parts, cleaned up the rest, built Moretti International into something my father never could, a real company with real contracts. But the connections remained. The people who'd worked with my father expected me to continue the relationship. Some of them didn't take no for an answer. So you compromised. I survived. There's a difference. Luca met her eyes. I don't move contraband anymore, haven't in years, but I know people who do. I attend their parties. I shake their hands. I make donations to their charities. And occasionally I use those connections to make problems go away, to protect my business and my people. Is that what the investigation is about? Those connections? Probably. They've been circling for months trying to find something concrete. They won't. My business is clean. But the associations, those are harder to deny. Emma processed this, her mind racing. The passport's in the safe. Insurance. In case things go very wrong, very fast. And the gun? Protection. I've made enemies, Emma. Real ones. People who wouldn't hesitate to hurt me or the people I care about. I need to be prepared. For what? A war? If necessary. His voice was grim. This world I live in, it's not safe. It's not simple. And it requires a certain willingness to fight dirty. That's what I meant by gray areas. I'm not a criminal, but I'm not a saint either. I'm someone who does what's necessary to survive and protect what's mine. Emma's hands trembled in her lap. And what am I? In all this? Am I something you're protecting? Or am I just another complication? Luca stood, moved around the desk, and crouched in front of her chair. His hands covered hers, warm and steady. You're the most important thing in my life right now, he said quietly. Not a complication, not a vulnerability. You, Emma Carter, the woman I chose because she was real in a world of performances, because she survived being broken and was still standing, because when I look at you, I see someone worth protecting, worth fighting for. Even if the fight destroys me, I won't let that happen. You can't promise that. Then I promise I'll try, every day, with everything I have. His grip tightened. But I need you to decide, Emma, right now. Can you live with this? With the gray areas and the dangerous connections and the possibility that things might get worse before they get better? Because if you can't, I'll let you go. I'll make sure you're protected, set up, safe. But I won't keep you in a situation that breaks you. I won't be Marcus. Emma looked into his eyes, those dark, intense eyes that had seen her from the first moment. She thought about the past month, about being seen, being wanted, being treated like she mattered, about the fear and the doubt and the constant questioning of her own judgment. She thought about Detective Chen's card in her pocket, about the safe full of secrets, about a life she didn't fully understand tied to a man who might be everything the press said he was. And she thought about going back to her empty apartment in Queens, to the invisibility, to the slow erasure of herself into nothing. I need time, Emma said finally. Pain flashed across Luca's face. How much time? I don't know. A few days, Maybe longer. I need to think without you here, without the pressure of photographers and police and decisions I'm not ready to make. Where will you go? I don't know that either. Maybe my apartment. Maybe somewhere else. But I can't think clearly here, Luca. Everything is too much. He stood slowly, stepped back, gave her space. Okay. Okay? You need time. I'll give you time. But Emma, his voice roughened. I meant what I said. All of it. I'm not giving up on this. On us. So think. Take your time. But know that when you're ready, I'll be here. Waiting. No matter how long it takes. Emma stood, wrapped her arms around herself. What if I decide I can't do this? Then I'll respect your choice, and I'll make sure you're okay. That's the promise I can make. She nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Moved toward the door, toward escape. Emma. She looked back. For what it's worth, Luca said quietly, you're not a mistake. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. I'm sorry I made you feel otherwise. The words broke something inside her. Emma fled before she could change her mind, grabbing her coat and bag, riding the elevator down with tears streaming down her face. The photographers outside caught her, flashes exploding, questions shouted. She pushed through them blindly, hailed a cab, and gave her old address. The apartment in Queens looked smaller than she remembered, dusty, cold. Emma let herself in, dropped her bag, and sank to the floor. Her phone buzzed. Luca, probably. She didn't look. Instead, she pulled out Detective Chen's card, stared at it for a long time. Then she set it aside, pulled her knees to her chest, and let herself break completely. Because that's what you did when the thing you wanted most was also the thing that might destroy you. You broke, and then you had to figure out if breaking was the end or just the beginning of something new. Emma didn't know which it was yet, but she was going to find out. 6 months had passed since the scandal broke, and Emma was learning that survival looked different than she'd imagined. It wasn't dramatic or cinematic. It was waking up every morning in Luca's bed and choosing to stay. It was therapy twice a week with a woman who didn't let her hide behind polite deflection. It was slowly, painfully, learning to trust again. The media storm had eventually died down, exactly as Luca promised, but the damage it left behind took longer to heal. Emma stood at the window of Luca's penthouse, their penthouse now, she supposed, though she still couldn't quite think of it that way, watching the city wake up. Her hand rested on the slight swell of her stomach, barely visible under her oversized sweater. 14 weeks. A girl, the doctor had said yesterday. A daughter. She still hadn't told Luca. You're up early. Emma turned. Luca stood in the doorway, hair disheveled from sleep, wearing only pajama pants. Even after 6 months, the sight of him still did something to her chest, made it tight and warm and terrified all at once. Couldn't sleep, she said. He crossed to her, wrapped his arms around her from behind, chin resting on her shoulder. Nightmares again? No. Just thinking. About? Emma's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. Luca noticed. He noticed everything, and went still. Emma, he said quietly. Are you pregnant? Her breath caught. She'd planned to tell him differently. Over dinner, maybe, or with some thoughtful gesture. Not like this, cornered by his observation. Yes, she whispered. Luca's arms tightened around her. He was quiet for so long Emma's heart started to race. Then he turned her in his arms, tilted her face up to meet his eyes. How long have you known? 3 weeks. 3 weeks. Not angry, just processing. Why didn't you tell me? I was scared. Of what? Emma's eyes burned. That you'd feel trapped, that this wasn't what you wanted, that I'd become another obligation you had to manage. Luca's expression shifted through several emotions too fast to track. Finally, he pulled her closer, pressed his forehead against hers. Do you remember what I told you the night we met? That I see you? All of you? Yes. That includes this moment, this choice, this child. His hand moved to cover hers on her stomach. I'm not trapped, Emma. I'm terrified and unprepared and probably going to mess this up spectacularly, but I'm not trapped. Understood? You're not angry I didn't tell you sooner? I'm frustrated. But I understand why you waited. You were protecting yourself. That's what you do when you've been hurt. He kissed her forehead. But you don't need to protect yourself from me. Not anymore. We're past that. Emma wanted to believe him. She'd been wanting to believe him for 6 months, and some days it was easier than others. Today, with his hand warm on her stomach and his eyes steady on hers, it felt almost possible. I'm keeping her, Emma said. I know we haven't talked about this, and I know it's fast, but I'm keeping her. If that's not what you want, her, the baby, it's a girl. Luca's eyes widened. Then, impossibly, they went wet. Emma had never seen him cry, hadn't thought him capable of it, but tears gathered in his eyes as he dropped to his knees in front of her, pressed his face against her stomach. A daughter, he whispered, voice rough. We're having a daughter. Emma's hands found his hair, threading through it. You're okay with this? Okay doesn't begin to cover it. He looked up at her, and the naked vulnerability in his expression made her breath catch. Emma, I spent 15 years building walls, keeping people out, staying in control. Then you walked into that lounge 6 months ago and destroyed every single defense I had. And now we're having a child. A daughter. So no, I'm not okay. I'm completely undone. And I've never been happier in my entire life. The tears Emma had been holding back finally fell. Luca stood, pulled her into his arms, and they stood there in the morning light, holding each other like the world might end if they let go. We need to talk about logistics, Luca said eventually, pulling back. The apartment isn't set up for a baby. We'll need a nursery, equipment, safety measures, and security. We'll need to increase security. People will find out, and when they do, Luca. What? Breathe. We have time. He exhaled roughly. I know, but I need to plan. It's how I process. I know it is, but right now, can we just... Emma took his hand, pressed it against her stomach again. Can we just be happy for a minute? Before the planning and the logistics and the fear sets in? Luca's expression softened. Okay, just a minute. They stood like that, his hand on her stomach, her hand covering his. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, something fragile and precious was taking root. I love you, Luca said quietly. Emma's breath caught. He'd never said it before. Neither of them had, both too scared to be the first. You don't have to say it back, he continued. I know trust is hard for you. I know I haven't earned it completely. But I need you to know, Emma, I love you. I have for months. And I'm going to love our daughter with everything I have. Emma's throat tightened. I love you too. I'm terrified of it, and I don't know if I'm doing it right, but I love you, Luca. So much it scares me. He kissed her then, gentle and thorough, like he was memorizing the taste of those words on her lips. The weeks that followed were a blur of preparation. Luca threw himself into planning with the same intensity he applied to business. The spare bedroom became a nursery. He hired specialists, bought equipment Emma couldn't identify, and implemented security measures that seemed excessive until Emma remembered the media circus 6 months ago. We need to talk about the announcement, Luca said one evening. They sat in his office, their office, Emma corrected herself, reviewing nursery designs. When we tell people you're pregnant, Emma set down the fabric samples she'd been pretending to examine. Do we have to tell people? Eventually they'll notice. I mean, do we have to make it a formal announcement? Can't we just exist? Luca studied her. You're worried about the press. I'm worried about everything becoming a circus again, about strangers having opinions on our daughter before she's even born. About, Emma's voice cracked, about them saying terrible things and me not being strong enough to ignore it. He moved around his desk, pulled her out of her chair and into his lap. Then we don't announce. We keep it private as long as possible. And when people find out, my lawyers handle the fallout. You don't read the articles, don't engage, don't give them anything. Just focus on staying healthy and growing our daughter. Can you do that? I can try. That's all I ask. He pressed a kiss to her temple. And Emma? You're stronger than you think. 6 months ago, you ran from photographers. Last week, you walked past them without flinching. You're not the same woman I met. You're better. Emma wanted to argue, to point out all the ways she was still broken and scared. But Luca was right. She had changed. The woman who'd served champagne and made herself invisible wouldn't recognize who Emma was becoming. At 20 weeks, Emma's pregnancy became impossible to hide. The bump was visible even under loose clothing. Luca's staff knew, Antonio, the housekeeper, the security team. They were discreet, professional, and protective in ways that surprised Emma. The media found out 3 days later. Emma was at a doctor's appointment when her phone started buzzing, text after text from numbers she didn't recognize. She ignored them until Luca called. "Where are you?" His voice was tight. "Dr. Morrison's office. Why?" "Stay there. I'm sending Antonio. Don't leave until he arrives." "Luca, what? Someone leaked your pregnancy to the press. It's everywhere. Photos from this morning, speculation about due dates, editorials about whether I'm fit to be a father, the usual garbage." Emma's hands went cold. "How did they find out?" "I don't know yet, but I will. Antonio's 5 minutes away. Wait for him." He hung up before Emma could respond. She sat in the waiting room, phone buzzing in her hand, trying to breathe through the panic rising in her chest. Dr. Morrison appeared, took one look at her face, and ushered her into a private office. "Are you okay?" the doctor asked. "The press knows I'm pregnant. They're probably outside." "They are." 3 photographers in the parking lot. Dr. Morrison's expression was sympathetic. "Would you like to leave through the back entrance?" Emma started to say yes, started to run, like she always did. Then she stopped. "No," she said. "I'll wait for my car and leave through the front." "Are you sure?" "No, but I'm doing it anyway." When Antonio arrived, Emma walked out the front entrance with her head up. The photographers descended immediately, but Antonio was there, solid and protective, guiding her to the car. She didn't answer their questions, didn't acknowledge them at all, just got in the car and let Antonio drive her home. Luca was waiting in the lobby, pacing like a caged animal. When he saw her, relief flooded his features. He pulled her into his arms, held her so tight she could barely breathe. "Are you okay?" he murmured against her hair. "I'm fine. I didn't run." "I know. Antonio told me. I'm proud of you." "Don't be. I'm terrified." "Being terrified and doing it anyway is called courage." He pulled back, framed her face with his hands. "They're going to say things, horrible things about you, about us, about our daughter, and it's going to hurt. But we don't let them win. We don't let them make you small again. Understood?" Emma nodded, not trusting her voice. They went upstairs. Luca made her tea she didn't drink, put on a movie she didn't watch. Emma sat curled against him on the couch, his hand rubbing slow circles on her back, and tried not to think about the articles being written, the comments being posted, the strangers who thought they had a right to judge. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number with a link. "Don't click it," Emma told herself. But she did anyway. The article was worse than she'd imagined. It questioned whether Luca was really the father, speculated that Emma had trapped him with a pregnancy, called her a gold digger who'd gotten exactly what she wanted. The comments were even worse, vicious, personal attacks from people who'd never met her. Emma's hands shook. Luca noticed, took the phone gently from her grasp. "What did I say about reading the articles?" His voice was gentle but firm. "I couldn't help it." "Yes, you could. You chose to look. That's different." He set the phone aside, pulled her closer. "What did it say?" "That I trapped you. That the baby might not be yours. That I'm—" Her voice broke. "They called me a whore, Luca. They said our daughter is going to grow up ashamed of her mother." "They're wrong." "Are they? I'm a divorced woman who moved in with a man she barely knew, who got pregnant 6 months into a relationship. By their standards are garbage, and their opinions mean nothing." Luca tilted her chin up, forced her to meet his eyes. "Our daughter is going to grow up knowing her mother is strong and brave and survived things that would have destroyed weaker people. She's going to grow up knowing she was wanted and loved from the moment we knew she existed. And anyone who suggests otherwise can deal with me." The absolute conviction in his voice steadied something inside Emma. "You really believe that?" "Every word." He pressed a kiss to her forehead. "Now give me your phone." "What?" "Your phone. Give it to me. You're not reading any more articles, any more comments. If there's something important, I'll tell you. Otherwise, you're focusing on staying healthy. That's the only thing that matters." Emma should have argued, should have insisted on her autonomy. Instead, she handed over her phone and felt relief flood through her. The constant temptation to check, to read, to hurt herself with strangers' opinions, it was gone. Luca would handle it. She could just breathe. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. I'm being selfish. I need you healthy and whole. Both of you." His hand found her stomach. "How's she doing in there?" She kicked during the appointment. Dr. Morrison said everything looks perfect. "Kicked?" Wonder filled Luca's voice. "Can I feel it?" "Not yet. She's still too small. But soon." He kept his hand there anyway, like he could will their daughter to move. Emma covered his hand with hers and let herself sink into the moment. The fear was still there. It would probably always be there. But so was this. Luca's warmth, his protection, his absolute certainty that they would survive. The weeks passed. Emma's belly grew. Luca became more protective, more intense, hovering in ways that were equal parts endearing and infuriating. Emma started attending support groups for new mothers, made friends with women who didn't care about Luca's money or her past. She read books about parenting, about healing from trauma, about building a life she could be proud of. At 32 weeks, Luca came home from work earlier than usual. Emma was in the nursery, folding tiny clothes that still didn't feel real. "We need to talk," he said from the doorway. Emma's stomach dropped. Those words never meant anything good. "About what?" "About us. About the future." He crossed the room, took her hands. "Sit down." They sat in the rocking chair Luca had insisted on buying, expensive, imported, perfect. Emma's heart raced. "I spoke with my lawyers today," Luca began. "About custody arrangements if something happens to me, security protocols for our daughter, contingency plans." "Luca, let me finish. I also spoke with them about marriage." Emma's breath stopped. "I know we've never discussed it," he continued. "I know it's fast and probably terrifying given your history with Marcus. But I need you to understand something, Emma. I want this. Not because of the baby, though she's part of it, but because I want you, permanently, legally, in every way that matters." Emma's hands trembled in his. "Are you asking me to marry you?" "I'm telling you I want to. But I'm asking if you'd even consider it. If the idea is something you could eventually say yes to. Or if I'm asking the impossible." 1,000 thoughts raced through Emma's mind. Marcus and the divorce, the pain of being erased, the fear of losing herself again, but also Luca's hands on her face, his absolute attention, the way he'd held her through panic attacks and press scandals and her own worst moments. "I'm terrified," she said honestly. "I know. Marriage didn't work for me before. I don't know if I can. I'm not Marcus, and you're not the woman you were with him. We'd be building something completely different." Emma looked at their joined hands. "What would it look like? This marriage?" "Whatever we make it. We'd write our own rules, Emma. You'd keep your autonomy, your independence. You wouldn't lose yourself. I'd make sure of it." "How can you promise that?" "Because I love who you are. Why would I want to change you into someone else? That would be destroying the thing I value most." His grip tightened. "I spent 15 years alone, Emma. Building walls, staying in control, convinced that connection was weakness. Then you walked into my life and proved me wrong. You made me want things I'd given up on. Family, partnership, love. I'm not letting that go. I'm not letting you go." Tears streamed down Emma's face. "I love you, but I'm so scared." "Then be scared. We'll figure it out together. But Emma..." He shifted, and Emma realized he was lowering himself to one knee. Her breath caught. "I don't have a ring yet," Luca said. "I wanted to ask you first. Make sure you'd even consider it before making assumptions. But I'm asking now. Emma Carter, will you marry me? Will you build a life with me, raise our daughter together, and let me spend the rest of my days proving you made the right choice?" Emma's heart felt too big for her chest. She thought about the woman she'd been 6 months ago, invisible, broken, drowning. She thought about the woman she was now, scared but standing, hurt but healing, learning to trust again. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Luca surged up, kissed her hard, and Emma tasted salt on both their lips. When they broke apart, he was smiling wider than she'd ever seen. "I love you," he said against her mouth. I love you so much. I love you too. Even though you're controlling and intense and you hover, I'll try to hover less. Liar. He laughed, pressed his forehead to hers. Okay, yes, but I'll hover with your permission. How's that? Better. They sat like that for a long time. Emma in the rocking chair, Luca kneeling in front of her, his hands on her belly where their daughter kicked and turned. The future stretched out ahead of them, uncertain, probably difficult, definitely imperfect. But it was theirs, and that was enough. 3 weeks later, Emma stood in front of a mirror in an ivory dress that accommodated her pregnant belly. Nothing elaborate, just a simple ceremony at City Hall with a handful of people. Luca's lawyer as witness, Antonio. Dr. Morrison, who'd become something of a friend. And Emma's therapist, who'd helped her understand that saying yes to Luca wasn't giving up herself. It was choosing to build something new. You ready? Luca asked from the doorway. He wore a dark suit, no tie, and looked at Emma like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. I think so. Ask me again in 5 minutes. He crossed to her, took her hands. Cold feet? Freezing, but I'm not running. Good, because I'm not letting you go. He kissed her knuckles. You look beautiful, by the way. I look pregnant and terrified. Beautiful, he repeated firmly. Trust me on this. The ceremony was short and surprisingly emotional. Emma cried through her vows. Luca's voice cracked during his. When the officiant pronounced them married, Luca kissed her like it was the first time and the last time, and every time in between. Afterward, they went to dinner at Il Gabbiano, the same restaurant from their first date. Emma ordered the pasta she couldn't pronounce. Luca ordered in Italian. And they talked about everything and nothing, the gold band on Emma's finger catching the light. Mrs. Moretti, Luca said, testing out the name. I'm keeping Carter professionally, Emma reminded him. We agreed. I know, but I like how it sounds, Emma Moretti. Has a ring to it. You're ridiculous. Say, you married me anyway. God help me, I did. They laughed, and Emma felt something settle inside her. This was right, imperfect and scary and uncertain, but right. She'd spent so long being invisible, being erased, being nothing. Now she was seen, loved, building a life on her own terms. 8 weeks later, their daughter arrived. The labor was long and difficult and nothing like the peaceful birth stories Emma had read. She screamed at Luca, broke his hand, threatened to divorce him before they'd even celebrated their first anniversary. He took it all without flinching, held her hand, whispered encouragement, and cried when the baby finally emerged. She's perfect, the doctor said, placing the tiny, screaming bundle on Emma's chest. Emma looked down at her daughter, red-faced, furious, alive, and felt her entire world shift. This tiny person was hers. Hers and Luca's. Real and solid and absolutely terrifying. What should we call her? Luca asked, voice rough with emotion. They'd debated names for months without deciding. Emma studied her daughter's face. Sophia, after your mother. Luca's expression crumpled. His mother had died when he was young. Emma knew that much, though he rarely spoke about her. Are you sure? Yes. Sophia Emma Moretti. It's perfect. He kissed Emma's forehead, then carefully touched his daughter's tiny hand. Sophia's fingers wrapped around his, grip surprisingly strong. Hello, Sophia. I'm your dad, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you're safe and loved and know exactly how wanted you are. Emma watched him with their daughter and felt tears stream down her face. Happy tears this time. Grateful tears. They'd been through so much to get here. The scandal, the fear, the panic attacks and nightmares and moments when Emma was sure she'd made a terrible mistake. But looking at Luca holding Sophia like she was the most precious thing in the world, Emma knew she'd choose this again. Every single time. 6 months after Sophia was born, Emma stood in the nursery at 2 a.m, rocking her fussy daughter. Exhaustion pulled at her bones. Her hair was a mess. She hadn't showered in 2 days. Motherhood was nothing like the books promised. It was harder, messier, more overwhelming than anything she'd imagined. But it was also this. Sophia's tiny hand wrapped around her finger, the weight of her daughter in her arms, the absolute certainty that she would burn the world down to protect this tiny person. Can't sleep? Luca appeared in the doorway, hair disheveled, wearing only pajama pants. She's fussy. I didn't want her to wake you. I was already awake. Come here. He took Sophia, settled into the rocking chair with practiced ease. 6 months of fatherhood had transformed him in ways Emma was still discovering. He was softer with Sophia, more patient, still intense and protective, but with a gentleness Emma hadn't known he possessed. "You're good at this," Emma said, sitting on the floor beside the chair. "At what?" "Being a dad, being present, not running when things get hard." Luca looked at her, Sophia sleeping against his chest. "Where would I run to? Everything I love is right here." Emma's throat tightened. "I never thought I'd have this. After Marcus, after everything fell apart, I convinced myself I was done, that I'd be alone forever, that love wasn't worth the risk. And now? Now I'm terrified every single day that something will go wrong, that I'll wake up and this will all disappear, that you'll realize I'm not worth the effort and leave." She paused. "But I'm also happier than I've ever been. And I'm learning that those things can exist together. Terror and happiness, fear and love." Luca reached down, threaded his fingers through hers. "I'm not going anywhere, Emma. How many times do I have to prove that before you believe me?" "Probably a few more thousand. I'm stubborn that way." "I know. It's one of the things I love about you." They sat in comfortable silence, Luca rocking Sophia, Emma's head resting against his knee. Outside, the city slept. Inside, their small family existed in a bubble of warmth and safety. "Thank you," Emma said quietly. "For what?" "For seeing me. That night at the gala, when I was invisible and drowning. Thank you for looking. Thank you for letting me in, for taking the risk, for choosing this even when you were terrified." He squeezed her hand. "We're going to be okay, Emma. All three of us. I promise." And for the first time since that night 6 months ago when Luca Moretti had shattered her invisibility, Emma actually believed him. She believed in the future they were building, believed in their imperfect, complicated, absolutely real love, believed that she was strong enough to stand beside him, to raise their daughter, to be seen without disappearing. Emma Carter, Emma Moretti, was no longer invisible. She was loved, protected, and finally, completely home. And that was everything.